future is now. And welcome to the SVK Crypto podcast. 15 minutes of crypto fame.
My name's Storry. I will be your host the next 15 minutes. We're coming live from the city of London. So let's get down to business. Today's show, I'm proud to announce, is going to have a slightly different format. We have Matthew Liu, the co-founder of Origin Protocol, one of the most exciting ICOs that's getting a lot of attention out there. So we thought we'd bring him in onto the podcast today and hear it from the man himself. For those that don't know, the Origin Protocol is basically a protocol created for the sharing economy marketplaces using the Ethereum blockchain and IPFS. The idea is going to be revolutionary. It has major partners in the space. They have a phenomenal team with lots of experience in executing real businesses. So let's jump into the interview and hear it from the man himself. So on today's show, we have Matthew Liu, the co-founder of Origin Protocol. Matthew, how's it going?
It's going very well. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for making it on the show. Matthew, would you be so kind to give you a quick background to yourself for all the listeners out there?
Yeah, I'm the co-founder of Origin Protocol. Prior to that, I began my career as one of the earlier employees at YouTube. I was the third product manager there, roughly employee 25. Post Google acquisition, I spent a number of years at Google helping build out YouTube's monetization systems. From there was also VP of product at a couple other startups, Quickie and Bonobos, both of which were acquired successfully, before striking out on my own as an entrepreneur. Since then, I've been a serial entrepreneur working on several different companies and projects along the years, with the latest being Origin. And we're very, very excited about our mission here to decentralize the sharing economy.
Fantastic. And would you be so kind to give a high-level overview of the Origin Protocol ecosystem to any listeners that aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do here at Origin is build protocols that enable this sharing economy to move to the blockchain. So more specifically, we're trying to enable decentralized marketplaces. And we're not doing this alone. So we're building a set of developer tools, a platform, if you will, that will allow many different businesses to build decentralized marketplaces across many different verticals and many different regions. So for example, can we have the future version of Airbnb live totally on the blockchain, or a Fiverr or Elance, or even an Uber? And so this is the mission that we're really trying to accomplish, allowing these peer-to-peer transactions between buyers and sellers on decentralized marketplaces. The current ecosystem right now is young, but it's very, very optimistic and it's growing very rapidly. So we have a fairly large community of supporters worldwide that care about our mission, that are really helping us promote the project and push it forward. We've signed up over 24 partners committing to build on top of our platform when we're ready to launch. So it's a very, very exciting time here for us at Origin.
Perfect. You guys, it sounds like you guys are really working hard. So that's great to hear. What kind of excites you most about the space and the potential within?
Yeah, there are several points here. I think the first of which is just that this is really, really a market that people all over the globe. It's also a market that's in size. So you talk about Asia, Australia, Africa, South America, you name it. There are services that appeal to consumers, whether it is, again, home sharing, ride sharing, contract services, all different types of fractional usage of assets and services. People can really, really relate to what we're doing because they've used these services themselves, or they've actually worked as suppliers of these service marketplaces. So I think there's a lot of excitement about how can we change the way that millions of people around the world do business. And subsequently, there's also a very large market opportunity in terms of all these existing centralized players. A lot of them have formed these large monopolies that bring in a ton of revenue and or are very profitable. So you look at companies like Didi or Uber or Grab, they're all going after the rideshare space very, very aggressively, and they've built these large regional businesses. Same thing that can be said true of Airbnb, and there are many, many other examples. So it's just a very, very large market that touches millions of people worldwide, and having potential to impact all these lives and change the way and the fundamental paradigm of how these people are transacting with each other. This is super, super motivating for us.
Absolutely. And what's interesting as well is seeing the new space and seeing the older type tech giants like Uber, and having all these new companies that could potentially take over. I think everyone's kind of, it's new technology, and it's definitely shaking up the industry itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're still in the early days, but we very much see the decentralization of these large centralized intermediaries as fairly inevitable. It may take a while. We may or may not be the best solution and platform to bring about this vision, but it very much seems obvious to us that more and more these types of services are going to be conducted on a peer-to-peer basis, and there's going to be much more direct interaction between buyer and seller. And as a consequence of that, these buyers and sellers are not going to have to pay the same fees that they're paying to these centralized intermediaries. These products and services are going to be much more censorship resistant, and also the individual buyers and sellers are going to have much more incentive and stake in these marketplaces that they're part of.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And kind of back to the Origin protocol, I mean, how do you intend on the platform being used, and what use cases do you see it facilitating?
Yeah, so this is probably a two-part answer for me. The first of which is there are use cases, I think, that everyone gravitates towards and are easier to understand. So again, something like home sharing, but not just home sharing in the sense of Airbnb, but you can imagine corporate apartments or foreign exchange student leases that are 2 to 3 months. There's all these different categories that can be enabled when some of the constraints of these normal applications are removed. And I think we're going to see many of the same categories in the sharing economy: home sharing, ride sharing, delivery, contractor services, on-demand massage services, all sorts of different things, but slightly different flavors, and also more niche variants of this, and also more localized versions of this. So you can imagine certain countries or certain cities having slightly different services on various different decentralized applications that really cater towards those specific markets. And then the second part of this is, I think, having a open source generalized platform that can appeal to many, many different entrepreneurs and developers all over the world actually creates this really exciting concept of the unknown unknown. So we imagine 10 years from now, there are marketplaces that we haven't even been able to imagine today. They may have been opportunities that have been only unlocked because of the blockchain and because of the decentralization that we're bringing about. So your guess is almost as good as mine as to what we might be able to see. But that's also really, really fascinating to us, right? And we're patiently awaiting to see what are some of these new novel use cases that might end up being really, really large and impactful, but are not immediately obvious from our vantage point today.
Gotcha. And what improvements does it make over current sharing economies, would you say, in your view?
Yeah. There are a long list of reasons here. I'll just touch upon a few of the most important ones. So again, I think at the most basic level, we're trying to make this much more peer-to-peer. This allows buyers and sellers to meet in the middle. So let's take away that 15, 20, sometimes 30 or higher percent transaction fee that a middleman like a Fiverr or a Airbnb might take from the transaction. And so economically, that's better for both sides of the transaction. Secondly, there are a lot of markets where some of the services that we take for granted in the Western world are actually censored very heavily or regulated. So what can we do to remove some of the censorship and allow some of these goods and services to be in markets that currently they do not exist in today? And that can also be applied to even some of the more popular services like Uber, which are banned in London and Vancouver, and Airbnb, which is very, very heavily regulated, even in its home city of San Francisco. So when we make this peer-to-peer, makes these services much more censorship resistant. It allows buyers and sellers to interact in the way that they originally intended to, without all these rigorous controls. And it really gives them the freedom of choosing how they want to run their commerce. Third, there's the opportunity to reward the early participants in these networks. That hasn't really happened in the previous generation of marketplaces. Fourth, if we do things with the blockchain and cryptocurrency, we can be global from day one. So companies can interact with consumers all over the world with a shared currency without having to deal with international banking transfers or wires. And this will hopefully make it so that, again, this entire movement is much more global. There are a lot more different types of goods and services that people can participate in, and the discovery of new niches and verticals will hopefully also expand greatly.
Perfect. I think you summed it up extremely well. Also, just on a side point, how can users of your network pay for services they use? Talk me through that a little bit. Yeah.
So to clarify, the protocol that we're building allows for zero transaction fee transactions. So buyers and sellers, just using the protocol themselves, they wouldn't have to pay anything to the system. Obviously, the buyer would pay the seller for whatever service that they're using. And so that's the fundamental premise of the protocol. However, we also do want to allow developers and entrepreneurs building on top of the protocol to have some flexibility in terms of what business models that they employ. So while we would heavily discourage, let's say, a new business from charging a 20% transaction fee, if they felt appropriate to charge something much smaller as a fee, then that is totally within their prerogative. We can imagine new models where businesses are charging membership or subscription models for access to inventory. We can imagine businesses allowing for more a la carte charges for certain services associated with the transaction. So right now you have home sharing. Airbnb charges this large fee, and they're pretty opaque about how that money is being used, whether it's being used for their own marketing. Some small portion of it is probably being used for insurance and customer operations, etc. In the case of this new decentralized world, I can imagine a case where the individual supplier is able to say, hey, I actually do want to have an arbitration service or a dispute management service, and as a result, I'm willing to pay some sort of flat fee on my listing, but it's much more their choice versus what the system has imposed upon them, and it's much more a la carte, and theoretically, it should also be much more cheap for them to go through this process.
Gotcha. And how has the community responded to your project? Because I really believe personally, and we do as a company, believe that the community is key to every project. And how have you felt the response thus far?
I 100% agree that community is absolutely essential. It is 100% just as important as the technology that we're building. And to be honest, we're frankly very, very humbled by the tremendous response from the community that we've received. Just the amount of momentum that we've been building in the past few months. It's really something that I feel blessed about every single morning I wake up. It's a much bigger vision and project than just myself or Josh or our immediate team. We really see the potential of this being a very global movement. Our Telegram channel has, very quickly and organically gone to 20,000 members with virtually zero promotion on our part. We have hundreds of interested developers tracking our GitHub. Dozens of them have actually contributed to our code base, proactively. And so we already are seeing a community that is going to be helping us build this in a way that's much bigger than ourselves. And so as founders of this project, we see ourselves as almost shepherds, but certainly not people that are just, forcing this platform upon the world. It's like, how do we usher in this movement as a community and leverage everyone that cares about what we're working on, right? So people that are just promoting this to their respective local communities, Ethereum meetups, talking about the project, people that are contributing from a thought leadership perspective on like, hey, how do we actually build some of these different components that are required for decentralized marketplaces, our ever-expanding partner community that's committing to build on top of the platform and agreeing to these shared standards and how to represent users and identity and listings and transactions. And if everyone's on the same language, then everyone can build more efficiently and build more effectively. And of course, again, just the other people that are already contributing to our open source code base. It's really humbling, like I've said a couple times now. And we feel just really, really happy with how the community has responded thus far.
That's great to hear. It's great to hear you've got the full support of the community all around the world. I know it's a crazy idea, right? Anywhere in the world, people can be helping, people can be contributing, and that's kind of one of the beautiful things about the space as well. So with the launch of your first dApp on the Ethereum testnet, I think it's great to see that you guys have a working product to show the community prior to your token sale. Have you had much help? Was that quite a challenge to get that out there? Because it's something we don't see very often.
Yeah, that's always been very, very important to us as a team. We very much care about achieving this mission and producing world-class technology and releasing this to the world. So Josh, my co-founder, and myself have built many, many products in the past. We're both seasoned as engineers and product people, designers. We wear many different hats, and actually many of our core team have also started companies in the past and have had very expansive roles where they've had to push out really great products amongst different companies they've been at or started themselves. So it's very, very important to us that we're actually hitting our milestones, producing our alpha, then our beta, et cetera, et cetera. So the launch of our first dApp on the Rinkeby testnet, we consider a success. It's a great technology demonstration on how you can actually build a marketplace with 100% decentralized technologies. So this is just the Ethereum testnet, IPFS, and a bunch of JavaScript. And the reception thus far has been strong. So people in the community really appreciate the fact that we're able to put out a working prototype, that our GitHub is constantly getting updates, that our developer channels on our Discord are very, very active, and that we're engaging on our community, updating them on our progress. Of course, this is still just step one. There are many, many more features to build on the core smart contracts and the way that we're architecting all of that. We're working on Origin JS, our JavaScript library that will make it very, very easy for many different developers to interface with the blockchain and IPFS. The idea here is that not very many developers are very well versed in Solidity, as well as just blockchain programming paradigms, but almost any developer you talk to has had some experience in JavaScript, most widely used programming language today. So with Origin.js, our goal is to actually allow many, many developers to build on top of our platform without having to deal directly with many of the complexities with the blockchain. So we're very excited about the alpha. We're even more excited about our ongoing releases that are going to be coming in the upcoming months. And we look forward to hearing community reception and feedback as we get those next versions out.
Rocking it. And could you speak a little bit about the partnerships that you guys have announced thus far? Because I believe you've been extremely busy and you've managed to publish a few thus far, right?
Yeah. We took a very proactive stance even at the very beginning of this company that we wanted to bring on a lot of partners, a lot of like-minded developers and entrepreneurs and business owners that share the same vision of having decentralized commerce in this new Web 3.0. So thus far, we've signed up just over 24 partners that are committed to building on top of the Origin platform. They come from a variety of spaces. So we have Kenya, which is trying to build a contractor marketplace very similar to Fiverr. And they're based out of Australia. Then we have a company like BToken, which is close to us in our native city of San Francisco, but they're tackling the home sharing version of the home sharing vision, excuse me, and it's going after Airbnb. We have a number of other partners. We have Snagride pursuing the Uber vision. We have Block Food that's doing food delivery, but even others that are not as immediately obvious when we talk about the sharing economy. We have Odem, we have Thrive, we have Jolly.
While we have you on the show, is there anything you'd like to share exclusively of the SVK Crypto podcast listeners out there?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is thanks so much for listening and participating in this broader discussion on how we can build a better decentralized world for tomorrow. It's really something that is really, really impactful for the community to be so large and so enthusiastic about our shared mission. So speaking not only from Origin, but also on behalf of other project founders and people working in the space, we definitely would not be able to do this without the broader community and without all this momentum that everyone's pushing behind us. We are trying to get stronger and have a larger presence in the European community. So would love to have individuals that are interested in what we're doing reach out. You can join our Telegram channel. You can join our Discord channel, which has a little bit more development and is where the
we'll
internal
put all the
team
links
is doing
down there as well for
all
the listeners out there that want to
fantastic. Yeah. And again, just want to thank everyone in advance for being part of the community, for supporting us. We really look forward to hitting all our milestones and really trying to put out our very best work for everyone that is supporting us.
Great. Well, thank you so much for making it on the show today. We really appreciate it, and we know how busy you are. So we look forward to having you on again after the ICO. Good luck, by the way, and we'll be hearing from you soon.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciated the time here.
I just want to say a big thank you to Matthew for making it on the show today. Thank you for your attention, the listeners. You're the ones who make this happen. So a big thanks. And thanks for all the nice comments we've been receiving on Twitter. Remember, as always, to tweet us at SVK_crypto. Follow us on Telegram. Join our Telegram community. It's absolutely massive. The best way to do that is to type in to Telegram at SVK Crowd. One word. Join in. Message myself. Message the team. Have a phenomenal evening. And we'll be back tomorrow with another great podcast. Have a good one.
You've been listening to an SVK Crypto podcast original. Follow us on Twitter at SVK_crypto. Email us on cstorry@svkcrypto.com. Leave us a message on our website, www.svkcrypto.com.